Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt and I'm here with the newest iteration of the definition of hybrid. The Prius has been a pioneer since it first came out and now it's sexy. So today we're going to show you the best and the rest of the new Prius. Let's get into it. Now first things first, we got to talk money, and this thing, it's more expensive than it was, and obviously. The new Prius now starts at $27,650. Go up to $29,000, you'll get all-wheel drive. As tested, this thing is pretty topped out at $38,000, and that's a lot of money. Now, this is a normal Prius, the normal hybrid. You can get a plug-in Prime, which starts at $32,675. So yeah, it's a lot more expensive than it was last gen, but there's a lot more car here than there was last gen, which we'll talk about more. And then there's a little bit of a cringe aspect. Now, Toyota's trying to inject some more personality into the car, which sometimes can go really well, and sometimes it can come off as, well, a bit cringe. Now, personally, I'm all for injecting some personality into cars generally. It's sometimes cool and unique, and sometimes it comes in the form of putting things like hashtag wireless charger or hybrid reborn everywhere on the car, or hashtag panoramic roof on your sunroof. There's 15 of these things total. So you'll probably still find them as you spend your entire first year with the car. Honestly, I'm not really bothered by these. They're more funny than anything, but some people could consider it a certain way. Now we have to talk about the Prius Prime problem. Now you can get front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive on any Prius trim you want, so long as it's the normal Prius. If you want the Prime, the plug-in hybrid with its additional power, performance, and electric range, get almost 45 miles of fully electric range, by the way, you're gonna have to make do with just front-wheel drive. Not ideal for climates like this here in Wisconsin as it starts to get snowy. Could you do it? Totally. But is it ideal? And then we have to talk about cargo capacity and the trunk specifically. It's still a good sized trunk, but it is smaller than last year. You get about 21 cubic feet of space, and the Prime will use up more of the trunk space with its bigger battery. At least you get a power liftgate unlimited, and you have close and lock, which I don't even think you had on the RAV4 hybrid. And it is still practical. It's still more practical than like a sedan trunk you would get in like a Model 3 or a Corolla hybrid. So that is still worth noting. But this week I also did film a Civic Type R, which is also a hatchback, and that had a much bigger trunk. So, just something to note. And then I want to talk about the cockpit here because I hate it. Maybe this is just me, maybe it comes down to personal preference, and honestly, the Prius has always had a weird dash. The Model 3 could run because the Prius walked, but I just don't like the steering wheel / gauge cluster combo here. Your steering wheel and gauge cluster are straight out of the BZ4X, and I hated it there and I hate it here. It's like the cluster can't decide if it wants to be a normal cluster underneath the top of the steering wheel or a head-up display, so it does both, and basically the steering wheel just is constantly in the center of the screen, so I can't see anything. I will say I kind of got used to it this week. There's not a lot that you need to see up here anyway, aside from your speed and maybe your fuel economy status and your lane keep stuff, but it's just make it one or the other. Just give me a cluster and then no head-up display, I'd be much happier. But changing gears and talking about all the places that this thing shines, the first thing is the fact that it's so much more efficient. Now you do have your EV mode silliness, but that really only works in slower speed conditions, but it will kick itself into a fully electric mode just completely irregardless of what you press here. It'll just do it automatically. And you get about 50 mpg with all-wheel drive and the big wheels. For the maximum range, you're gonna wanna go, or maximum miles per gallon, I should say, you're gonna wanna go front-wheel drive and with the smaller wheels. You get about 57 mpg that way. But let's say you wanna do the plug-in thing and you wanna be able to drive to work and back on fully electric range. Well, you can do that in the Prius Prime. That should give you somewhere between 40 and 45 miles of fully electric range on a full charge, and that's pretty good. It's probably good enough to get most people to work and probably home on a single charge, and then you charge up overnight and then you're good to go to work again the next day. Now you compare this range and this fuel economy to something like the Corolla hybrid that we tested earlier in the year, and it's significantly better by like 10, maybe even 15 mpg. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it's hot now. Look at it. It looks great. You've got boomerang style running lights up front, you've got LEDs as standard, which is great. The simple face is elegant. The whole car is an inch wider, 2 inches lower, and 2 inches longer for the wheelbase. If you go for the bigger 19-inch wheels around the side, you will reduce your fuel economy. But from the profile, you can see that it is shaped like a sexy computer mouse. Your rear door handle is integrated into the window trim. It's an electronic digi-latch, but you do have a mechanical failsafe. And you get black accents for the window treatments and the wing mirror and some of the panoramic roof stuff. And around back, you no longer have the split rear window. It's just one full piece of glass. And you do have a full width tail bar underneath with kind of a Toyota Crown-esque treatment underneath. And it says Prius boldly across the back with a blacked out Toyota logo. Interestingly, there's no more blue Toyota logos. They've gone to this pearl blue hybrid EV Beyond Zero badge. And of course, there's no cutouts for exhaust back here. I mean, it's not just hot for a Prius, it's hot for a lot of hatchbacks. But this one's for the enthusiasts that have been poo-pooing the Prius for the last few years. Here now, you have a bigger engine. You've got a 2-liter rather than a 1.8, so it's bigger, makes more power. You've got 2 electric motors for all-wheel drive. It'll make it like an E all-wheel drive. But with all-wheel drive, you make 196 horsepower. In front-wheel drive, you do 194 horsepower. But that's way more than like the 120 you were getting from last gen. You get an eCVT with all-wheel drive traction. You're getting to 60 in like 7 seconds just about, which is full seconds quicker than it was in the previous gen. So is it fast? Kind of. And your interior and technology is so much more modern now. You get a 12.3-inch infotainment system with the newest technology that we've seen rolled out from the Tundra initially like 2 years ago. That means wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, over-the-air updates, dual Bluetooth connections. You get 360 cameras here, which is part of your limited premium Tony Stark package. It's about $1,000, $1,100 maybe. And you got a wireless charger that doesn't actually work, but it's a nice place to put your phone regardless. And you get a digital rear view mirror, which I think is like $200, but it's nice to have now that you don't have the split window, so you can see out the back a little bit better. This thing's packed with all the stuff that I really want. And then just the driving experience as a whole. It is more powerful, but it's also really, really smooth. This is Toyota's latest generation of their hybrid system, which is faultless. It's probably the best hybrid system that you can get from any manufacturer. It's very smooth, it's very refined. When the engine does kick in, you don't really notice it unless you're not listening to music. Then you can hear the kind of raspy wah from the engine, but other than that, you really don't feel the transition between gas and electric, which is pretty good. And then as far as like the body composition goes, it's low, it's a hatchback, but it's lower now, so the center of gravity is lower, it takes a corner better. You're not getting a lot through the steering, but it's a Prius, who cares? But ultimately, the biggest feeling that you're left with behind the wheel is just, it's less embarrassing to be seen in the Prius now. It's arguably even cool now, which is the first time the Prius has been cool probably since the early 2000s. But if you're looking for a sports car, it's not that, but it's a lot better. And then we're going to talk about the rear seats. You do have that digital door handle latch thing, which keeps the exterior design looking nice and clean and aerodynamic, but it is a little bit strange to get used to. But then actually in the back seats here, even at 6'1", I have some knee room, which is pretty impressive. The headroom isn't quite as good. I do hit my head and my hat on the roof, but that's what you get for the sexy sloping roofline. You don't get rear air vents, which is kind of whack, but you can get rear heated seats back here in your limited executive whatever package, and you've got 2 USB-Cs and a map pocket, and ultimately it's pretty nice and comfy. If I had less torso, I'd be perfectly comfortable back here. And this may be a Prius, but remember I said at the beginning of the video that it was much more expensive than it was last gen, and all of that expense translates to really nice stuff that you get here now. Things like heated and cooled seats, heated rear seats like I just mentioned, you get a heated steering wheel, you get heated windshield wipers so they don't ice up. You get ambient light here, which is even better than the flagship Lexus TX that we were in last week. You get a panoramic roof, which is a $1,000 option. It's standard on the Limited, but you do get a bar across the middle, but that means each sunroof gets its own shade. It does affect headroom a little bit, but at least it says #panoramic roof on it. I mean, the only other thing you could ask for is maybe shades for the rear seats and a massage seat, but at that point, you've got like an S-Class Prius. And the last thing we'll talk about before some housekeeping stuff is Safety Sense. Now you get Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, which is fantastic. I drove this thing all the way down to Chicago and back, and on the highway, all I kind of had to do was just rest my hand on the steering wheel, and the car did everything for me. Slow down, speed up. It handled going through construction and transitions really, really well. So this is a top 5, if not top 3 system. Pretty good. Good job, Toyota. And before we get to final thoughts, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Now, I mentioned there's a bunch of Easter eggs all over the car, so I'm going to show you a few that I saw. Under your hood, you have Hybrid Reborn, Prius. Very cringy, maybe. Up here, you've got Prius on your window. On the inside of your dash, you have a little shape of that sexy computer mouse that you call a car now. In your wireless charger, #wireless charger. In your secret compartment, #hidden compartment. Sorry, hidden compartment, not secret compartment. Up on your #panoramic glass roof. And no one will ever notice this, but on your trunk release it says door handle, which I guess kind of it is, but it's more of a trunk release to me. And then of course, Hybrid Reborn, which is the slogan of the new Prius. This car also has a cold weather hack that's not new, but I think it is nice to have here. You see these little elements, these lines underneath your windshield wipers? Well, this heats up. You've got heating elements in those lines, which will melt the ice around your windshield wipers to make it easier to remove snow from your windshield if you don't want to scrape it off or if you've forgotten your scraper. That's nice. Thank you, Toyota. Final thoughts. So that is the best and the rest of the new Prius. And I know the title of this video says that there's 6 of the worst things about this Prius, which I think paints it in a maybe more negative light than it deserves. This is a fantastic car, and I leave my week with it thinking, maybe I need one of these? But anyway, thanks so much to Toyota for letting us have a go in their Prius. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.